I brought this up last week, and you just kind of shut me down and rolled your eyes and said, "Let's move on." But I do want to bring this up. The entire world watched Steph Curry go off the last 2 games against Serbia and then winning the gold medal against France. LeBron James, the MVP. The Olympics are the biggest athletic stage in the world. Everybody watches, not just America. Everybody, every continent, every human being in the world that has an opportunity has watched some part of the Olympics. Even Bret Boone watched a highlight or two online of the Olympics. The NBA is growing by leaps and bounds. The NBA is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And now it's an international game where the U.S. really got pushed harder than they've ever been pushed before because there's NBA players from around the world. So when they play Serbia, they're taking on a guy who's a 3-time MVP who doesn't play for the United States. Wemby, the next great superstar, plays for France. It's now become an international game. The National Football League is coming into the Olympics in 2028. We're going to have 5-on-5 flag football with NFL players playing in the Olympic Games. Football continues to grow its global footprint. I think the NBA is the biggest international game outside of soccer, the U.S. based. The National Football League is getting into the act, and they play games down, and they're going to have a game down in Brazil on opening weekend. They played over in Europe. They're getting bigger and bigger. They go down to Mexico City. They're growing their game. I asked you this last week. Bryce Harper talked about it this week. Nick even mentioned it. You know what? We need to get big leaguers in the Olympics. So I want to bring this back up to you again because as we see the worldwide effect of the NBA being international and how big it's made that sport, the National Football League is getting in on this. And I thought it was an amazing juxtaposition that we're talking about the NFL coming to the Olympics. And during the Olympic Games, Major League Baseball put out an announcement. We're going to build a track. We're going to build a field in the middle of a NASCAR track, and that's our response to grow the game. So they keep doing things like, let's play in a NASCAR track. Let's go find Field of Dreams. Let's go over here. Why not just play in the Olympics like everybody else and use that to showcase the game and actually commit the same way the NFL and the NBA has?
Well, there's a couple. I think for the ultimate, absolutely. But there's a few challenges when it comes to Major League Baseball. That's not a challenge when it comes to the NBA. NBA's off season.
Right.
We're in the middle of the season.
NFL's just starting training camp.
Right. It's like the World Baseball Classic. Yeah, it's okay during training camp to go do that because it doesn't interfere with the season. Baseball, first of all, is 162 games. It's a long season. I don't think there's any room with the expanded playoffs, and I think the success so far of the 12-team playoffs, there's really no reason to tweak that. That being said, you couple in spring training and how long spring training is with 162 and 4 rounds of postseason play, there's just no room for a week to 10-day gap. You would have to alter the Major League Baseball season. You'd have to go to 154 games. And I don't think they're going to do that. If they're going to do that, they're not going to just do it for 1 year. But, I've been thinking about this quite a bit. And with all the excitement around the Olympics and like you said, Bryce Harper, I think Aaron Judge has come to the hilt. I was in Seattle. I went up there a couple weeks ago and was there for a few events. And I was talking to some of the current players, and Justin Turner, I sat down with him at an event and talked to him for a while, and the Olympics came up, and he said, I think it would be a cool thing. We just have to figure out how to do it. And what those players were throwing around was, how about during an Olympic year, you still vote for the All-Stars, you still are selected an All-Star, but instead of having the All-Star game, you go to the Olympics. Maybe, once again, you're going to have challenges from the owners. Wait a minute, it's mid-season. We're in a pennant race, and we're messing around with the Olympics right now. And I don't say that in jest. I don't mean messing around. The Olympics is no big deal. I'm just thinking for the big picture for owners of Major League Baseball.
My personal.
Right. They need those guys to be healthy, and they can't be going off to the Olympics getting hurt in a pennant race. So I understand that. The same risks are for playing in an All-Star game, but an All-Star game is one game. and it's not ultra competitive. It's more of a show. The Olympics is, hey, we got to win, so we're playing at full tilt. We're approaching it like a playoff series. So you're going to lay it on the line, and there is going to be potential risk of injury. So you're going to have to convince the owners that it's worth their while. It's
Right.
this great to grow the game, to grow the game, that I need to risk my 20-30 million dollar player going off for 10 days away from the team. I go back and forth on it because I see the player side, I see the ownership side, I see the logistics side. But as I go down this journey, the selfish side of me and the fan in me, and for the good of the game side of me, thinks however we can make this possible, let's make it happen. It's not like you have to do it every year. Make it happen to grow the game. You mentioned, Rich, the NBA is doing a phenomenal job as far as growing the game. Yeah, and I think baseball needs to continue to do that. I think the World Baseball Classic's been a great thing. I think all the thing Major League Baseball is trying to do to make it more enticing to grab from different genres. I think they're doing what they can, adding the Olympics and not our minor league guys, the best players in the world. They want to see Aaron Judge come to the plate. They want to see a Juan Soto. They want to see Bryce Harper. And if those guys are willing to do it, I think it's the best thing for the game of baseball, not necessarily from a player's perspective, because there's a lot of things that have to happen. But I think the fan in me, for the good of the game, I think you find a way to make it work. And I think in the next few years, you're going to see it maybe get some traction. Because when you get a Bryce Harper and you get an Aaron Judge talking about it, people listen because they're the best players in the world. So it'll be interesting to see how, if it comes to fruition and the process leading up to it, because you have to get ownership to approve it, and then you've got to get the players to approve it. In Major League Baseball, if the owner says we're going to do it, that doesn't mean no. The players have to agree as well. But with the sentiment and seeing the national anthem being played and the coverage that's been there recently, it really is a cool moment. And I think it'll tug at the current baseball players' heartstrings when they're seeing USA being on the top of that podium and the national anthem playing, thinking, wow, that'd be pretty cool to get to do that. So for me, I'm in the camp of at all costs, let's try to get this done, because it's not like you're asking to do it every year. And maybe the Olympic year, maybe that is a good idea. You're still an all-star. You still get to put that on your resume. You just don't have the all-star game. You go and you block out that week. Logistically, it's still going to be tough because right now it's so packed in with spring training. They're starting the season earlier than they ever have.
Talking yourself out of it. So let me.
Yeah, it's tough, but I think it's a lot more complicated than people think.
Okay, hold on a second. Roll the tape, because I'm going to put you on the spot. You ready? Hey, yeah. Bret Boone, if there's a will, there's a way to get Olympic baseball and major leaguers representing the United States. The NBA's doing, the NFL's doing it. Major League Baseball could do it if those other two, if they really, really want to.
They could, but those, okay. If it was the NBA season right now, would they get it done?
You know what?
There's challenges that baseball has that the other sports don't have. It's easy for the NBA.
You're going to have to overcome
It's easy for the NBA to do it. It's in their off season. Of course. Why wouldn't you want to go do it? Of course.
Nothing in life worth anything is ever going to be easy.
Right. So I'm just saying,
in Los Angeles,
baseball's much tougher.
Well, but again, if there's a will, there's a way. In Los Angeles, I'm going to have maybe LeBron James, Steph Curry. I'm going to have Jason Tatum taking on Wemby in the world in the gold medal game in Los Angeles. And then on the next channel, I'm going to have the National Football League with Josh Allen. I'm going to have Patrick Mahomes, Christian McCaffrey playing for a gold medal in football. And in baseball, we're not going to be there. Can you afford to be left behind?
Maybe not. And I think the powers that be that really know how important it would be for baseball to be represented at the highest level. Yeah, we can throw a baseball team there. We can send the minor leaguers there. You can send the best college players in the world like they used to do. You could do that again, but that's not it, and I'll tell you what, I think they would represent the United States great if you did it with the amateurs, but it wouldn't be the same as having the big boys there.
You know what's funny? We'll have baseball in the Olympics, but no breakdancing. You know, breaking was an Olympic sport this year.
I saw that. And the football thing, I don't know how that's going to play. You know,
Oh, it's
that's
going to be huge.
all right. Well,
I mean,
I got to see it.
if you have, so it's 5-on-5
5 on
football.
right. It seems silly to me.
Originally, I thought it was, and this is why I'm so passionate about it. I'm getting mad about baseball, just holding on to the past and refusing to jump into the future. So the National Football League has got a strategy. They've gone and they played these games around the world to
Right.
start planting the seeds of baseball everywhere, or excuse me, of football everywhere. That's why they go to Europe every year. That's why they're going to Brazil. That's why they've gone to Mexico. And while they're there, they go, "Hey, if you want, hey, little kids, you want to play? We have this thing called flag football." So they planted the seed for the last 10 years of kids playing flag football around the world. If you watch the last couple of Super Bowls, they've shown kids playing flag football around the world. Those kids are now 18, 19, 20 years old. They're going to be 23, 24. They've been playing flag football for 10 years. It's a different sport than playing in the National Football League. So they're specializing in playing flag football. I had a coach call me this weekend and said, "Rich, we're not just going to walk out there and have Patrick Mahomes show up and dominate the world because it's a different game. It's a different, there's different strategies to it. There's different things. Yeah, absolutely. These are the best football players in the world in the National Football League, but they haven't trained and practiced in flag football where
Right. It would be like a baseball player going and playing over the line against
yes, that's it.
or maybe a cricket where we
Perfect
have the
example.
motions down, but the guys that play cricket for a living have a little bit of an advantage because that's what they do.
So, I mean, Tom Brady said he wants to play. I think he'll be too old. But could you imagine the hoopla that you have of having 44-year-old Michael Jordan and a 50-year-old Tom Brady playing in the Olympic Games, leading Team USA out in Los Angeles into the Coliseum for the opening ceremonies? And then we look, well, where's Aaron Judge? Oh, he's playing against the Guardians on a Tuesday night. Baseball cannot afford to not be on this big
No,
stage.
and
The other
you're
sports
right.
can take it over.
Now, business wise, you may be correct. You may have a valid point. That being said, you get a little caught up in the dramatic side of it. Oh, it's LA, and oh, there's Michael Jordan, and the smoke is coming up. Where I don't think of it that way. I think it'd be cool to be there, but I don't get into the fantasy of the back set, the backdrop, and oh, what a scene.
I think they said of the top 20 players in the NBA under the age of 25 or 30,
Right.
that only 6 of them were American because the NBA has grown the game internationally
Yeah.
and it's become
Baseball
truly a
has
global game.
too. You know, I'll sit here and say baseball's done a good job, Rich. They do the WBC. They go overseas for games. They're doing this
Right. If they go overseas to play
Field of
games,
Dreams. Field of Dreams. There's a lot of players coming now from Japan. One of the best players in the world now, Otani. We didn't used to have that reach. You know, it started with everybody thinks it started with Ichiro. Ichiro was the first position player. But what I remember that really put Japanese baseball on the map was who?
Hideo Nomo-san.
Without a doubt. Hideo Nomo, and still to this day, one of the great Japanese pitchers of all time. But now we're getting a lot of talent. We got Korean talent in the
Right.
league. Cuban. When I played, there's no Cuban baseball players. Now all of a sudden you're drawing from
Well, there are no
Cuba. So
Cuban players in the big leagues because they weren't able to go. Now
correct.
they're the top talent is able to make their way to the big leagues the
Right.
same way it's doing in the NBA. The other thing, though, Brent, then I want to move on, is baseball's also under attack because basketball's growing by leaps and bounds. Soccer's siphoning kids away from the game left and right. And the
Right.
National Football League saw probably 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, when concussions and CTE became a thing, you saw participation in football just go down the tubes. If you notice, and you're going to start seeing this, NFL Flag is their flag football program. So instead of having 8-year-olds play pee wee football and giving themselves concussion, The NFL is switched over to have them play flag football. That means that they're going to be competing for those young kids, and they're going to get those kids back over. Baseball, meanwhile, has little league and travel ball, and it just seems like the others are really invested in getting as many kids playing this sport as possible, where baseball goes out of their way to stop kids from playing, because once you start with travel ball, once you get to be 10 years old, and if you're not on a 12 under team, you go do something else. The baseball has got to figure out how to get more people in the pipeline, because these other sports are going to run them off the road. And I'm just looking at the Olympics. Baseball, get your act together before we become boxing.
Maybe, but I think it's a great idea. Like you said, where there's a will, there's a way. Let's try to get it done. But all I'm saying is, baseball has it's an uphill battle times 10 compared to the other sports. But
maybe it needs Bret Boone. Maybe it needs Bret Boone to be the spokesperson, getting everybody fired up, talking it up.
The key to this whole thing, Rich, is the players. And if the players get fired up enough about it and say, I don't care how hard it is logistically, let's make sure we're represented. It's not every year that we have to do that. It's what, every 4 years?
It's the honor of representing your nation every 4 years.
Right. So you've got to bend over backwards every 4 years. If the players embrace this and want it, it will happen.
And by the way,
players not unanimously, but a good swath of the Major League Baseball players have to be kind of pounding on the desk saying, this is important. And I think it's important that we're there, and it's important we're representing our country. And if they do that, you will see baseball represented at the big league level.
Yeah, and the PA's got to get behind it. But the thing is, when you look at all of this, it's got to be someone wanting to step up and get it done. And by the way, there's also no guarantee. Somebody brought this up on the radio with me this weekend. If we had baseball in the Olympics, there's no guarantee we'd win the gold, just like we don't win the WBC. Japan is going to put out a monster team. The Dominican, it would be an incredible tournament. And again, if I have Steph Curry and Team USA on one channel, and I've got Patrick Mahomes on another, I want Bryce Harper and Aaron Judge on the third, because if not, out of mind, out of sight, nobody will pay attention to the game. Let's move on.
And I'll give you one more point and then move on and then wrap this up. I got to play in I think it was the Pan Am Games or something, Olympic year.
You played in Cuba.
Right. And this is 1989. I will tell you, there is a big difference between Olympics and just a WBC. WBC, yeah, it's great. We want to win, but we're in spring training. We're getting ready for our regular season. I think the Olympics would have a different tone to it 100%. Than a Pan Am game, than a winning the WBC. So because I played in the Pan Am, and it was great, and I was proud to represent the USA, and it was all that, but it didn't have that luster of the Olympics. Not at all. And I think that changes. You change from an off-Olympic year to an Olympic year, that changes the whole game.
Would you ever trade that of going down to Cuba? You played in front of Castro in Cuba, representing the United States of America. How bad so I know you said it's exhibition, it's not, Game 7 of the World Series, but when you're playing, especially that's in the middle of the Cold War. That's in the middle of the Cold War.
And we got boat raced because we had sophomores in college. It wasn't even competitive.
And they had guys that would have played in the big leagues had they been able to come to
It was men playing with boys. That's what I remember.
How bad did they want it?
I think they wanted to whoop us, because I think we went into that series and that was a non-Olympic year. So all the best players in the world or best amateurs, they were all juniors and they got drafted and they signed.
Right.
During an Olympic year, they would get drafted and play in the Olympics, the best players. So we had basically the best freshmen and sophomores in college in the United States. That was who was representing USA. We went into Cuba thinking, hey, we're going to be competitive. We got a chance to win. They got there. We played their team. And real quick, we figured out that it was men playing with boys. I mean, these guys were just far advanced from the stage we were at in our college careers, and it wasn't even competitive. I think they mercy ruled us. Back then. You had the mercy rule. I think they mercy ruled us twice in a 3 or 4 game set.
It meant something to them, didn't it?
It meant something to them, and believe me, they did. They did not have any pity on us. I mean,
No.
they blew us out. I think 3 out of the 4 games.
Well, there was something in the Olympics. NBC replayed some Australian swimmers talking about how much she hated hearing the Star Spangled Banner and people chanting "U.S." and she kind of mocked the United States of America, and it got a lot of people fired up. And I don't think people realize. I said this over the weekend that if you're a athlete not wearing stars and stripes, you have 2 goals. You can go to the Olympics. One is to come home with a medal. The other is to beat the United States.
Yeah, and it's kind of like one of those things where getting booed in a visiting ballpark, that's a compliment. That's a compliment. I think Reggie said it. They don't boo nobodies. Uh, the fact that there's so much they want to beat the USA so bad. There's something to that. There's an envy there, which I think is pretty cool.